What's up gamers, it's Shin, and today we're going to be making a video talking about Acheron and whether or not you should pull for her. She's been out for a week and I've been using her and I've cleared all the content for Memory Chaos, Pure Fiction, still working on Golden Gears, but been able to clear all of the content with her, no problem. And I would like to kind of give my opinion on whether or not you should or shouldn't pull for her. Now, I would like to make a big disclaimer when talking about this, in that it's purely subjective. It's what I think, and your mileage may vary in what you value in a character. Now, I know DPS is a very hot topic in terms of whether or not you pull for DPS because they always get power crept. That is a very valid and true point, but I think there are some things about Acheron that other people have said that I would like to kind of talk about as well when it comes to her and power creep. So as we all know, she is the Raiden of this game. Why she's not called Raiden, we'll find out. As you can tell, I'm not finished with the story, but if we go look at her kit, let's go over. So from my understanding, because I'm not very familiar with Genshin Impact, like meta, and especially like when Raiden came out, Raiden's C2, like her E2 equivalent, is very, very strong and makes her significantly stronger, even though even at E0, she's still a very strong option. And I think Acheron will fall into that same trend, where her E0 is awesome already. Like, sure, it will never be bad, but her E2, the one that adjusts the requirement for her, the Abyss trace, like her Nihility character requirement, that, and plus the one stack of slashed dreams, is very powerful for her game plan. So it takes this trace and makes it just one Nihility, gives you 160% damage. So with that, I think that will permanently keep her a valid option. Now, it's a single player game, every character is viable, but I don't think there will ever be a day where somebody says, I want to play Acheron, and she will be considered a bad option. She might not be the best option because of like her elements, but the same thing goes with Raiden Shogun. And from I have even less knowledge on Honkai Impact 3rd, especially because I've only started playing it the last few months, and I'm going through the part 2 story on my Twitch. Make sure to check that out, link in the description. But from my understanding, Hersher of Thunder Raiden was insane and was just the meta for a period of time. Raiden Shogun did the same thing, and I think that's going to be a trend here as well, where the Raiden character is just always going to be a prevalent option for your investment. So do I think you should pull for her? Yes. Long term, yes, but there's a big stipulation to that. I think you can wait on her, especially with Jing Liu coming around. I don't have Jing Liu on my main account. I have her on my alt, so I can speak from experience with that. But Jing Liu is significantly and objectively easier to build and play around than Acheron. And I think that is a very important thing when you're convincing somebody who's new to the game and doesn't have a well-developed or well-invested account. That is important, because for Acheron to function at E0, S1 or S0, but E0, you need 2 Nihility units minimum to get her going. I don't think, unless I am of the belief that you should use 2 Nihilities over a Sparkle or a Bronya or a Harmony, because I think it's like same but different. But I think the reason why I suggest Nihility is because you're getting those debuffs, allowing her to ult more instead of that actually to advance forward. So you're kind of trading off how fast she can move or how often she moves by being able to apply and reapply more debuffs. Whereas Jing Liu, you just build her as a traditional DPS. You can slot her in on a team. Like, if you want to start out and you have Ting Yun and like Asta or let's say you've been playing for a bit and have Ruan Mei or Bronya, or maybe you have Sparkle and you don't have the other two. So you do like Sparkle, Tingyun, insert, sustain. That is a very solid team that will get the job done. Whereas with Acheron, you need a specific team around her specifically, and that's Sparkle slash Harmony, like dual Harmony, hyper carry, team comp is plug and play. You take a DPS and you throw it in there. So like you can use Welt, Black Swan, Kafka, Himiko, Ratio, Topaz, Zila. You get the point. Like any DPS, you could even throw in Misha, Yansheng, Xingshui, Susheng. Like, yeah, you get the point. You can throw in anyone in that team and they will perform. So I think that is a very big factor because it's gonna take a while. Like I pulled Acheron on my alt account, but since I've been trying to build up like a second team with Imbiber Lune because I just got him, I want to be able to use my Acheron. I have a Silver Wolf and Pella that are built, but I still need to level her up and get her, like, that's a different issue. But it's like, if I didn't have that Pella or Silver Wolf built, I would have to build 2 characters just for her. Like, I didn't build Guinaifen on my alt account because I pulled Jin Liu and I wanted to try hyper carry teams because I don't have that built in my main account. So I think that is a very important thing to consider, is the amount of investment for your entire account as a whole. In that sense, is like, oh, you have to build an entire team around her. Kind of like Kafka, in my opinion. You want to play Dot. If you just have Kafka, playing her in hyper carry will do the job. But I personally hate Kritka. I don't like that because you're basically ignoring half of her kit just because you don't want to build another team. And I get it, it's a big investment, so I understand why people do that and why people like Kafka but don't want to have to build a Dot team. It's what you enjoy at the end of the day. It's what you enjoy and what you have fun with. But I think if you're playing Kritka and hyper carry, I think you have to acknowledge that you're not playing to her strengths. And I think that is a big thing to have to consider. Whether or not you have Topaz, it's fine. But if you are playing Topaz and you don't have any other follow-up characters, you're not really playing to her strengths, where she wants to have more than one character doing follow-up attacks. So you want to be able to have like your free Dr. Ratio, so buff his follow-up attacks. Clara, Arch 7th, if I can find it right here. Yeah. Shui. Like, it's just so many characters that you have to kind of like think about, and that comes down to team building. I know I keep circling back to it, but I really think, as much as I love Acheron, I think if you're starting out today, pull Acheron if you really like her. That's fine, because then you can build her and you will probably get a Pella, at least a Pella, and you can get like Ratio. You can probably get a Guinaifen. You can get a Guinaifen from the selector. You will probably get a Gallagher, and you would have your 4 characters because he applies a debuff and stuff. So like, she is a selfish DPS in the sense that you have to build your team around her to be able to get her to do damage. Otherwise, most of her damage is in her ultimate. Now, obviously she doesn't do no damage outside of her ultimate, but her ultimate is where the majority of her damage comes from. So I think she is one of those characters that is kind of like an end game character, where if you have a more fleshed out account like mine's not perfect. I don't have Silver Wolf, unfortunately, but I do have Welt. I do have a built Welt. I do have a built Pella, and as I showed, I have E6 Acheron, so I was able to put in a Sparkle. So this team comp requires you to have a high investment team. So like, even at the end of the day, you have to be able to invest in the character and the other characters as well, like specific characters for her. Now, granted, you could run these characters in other teams, but if you didn't plan on using Welt or Pella, you would have to dedicate them to her. And then same thing with like any other Nihility. If you don't have Welt or Silver Wolf or Kafka or Black Swan, you'd have to build a second Nihility character specifically for Acheron. And I think that is a really hard thing to sell people is, hey, you see this character, you're gonna have to build 2 other characters on top of her just to make her playable at E0. And it's a reasonable thing to be questionable about. So I do understand why people are saying not to build her. But I do think if you can invest long term, she will be forever a good unit. In my opinion, that is my guess. I am not a meta player. I play for fun. So I think, my opinion, fun wise, I love her. And I think she is a great addition, especially if you just like her. That is the best value you can get from her. Just enjoying having her on your account is the best investment. But I think if you're trying to be efficient with your pulls as free to play, or you're a like a light spender, like you just get the battle pass and login bonus pass, then I would really question whether or not you want that investment right now, because maybe later on when you have more Nihility units and you have a more fleshed out account, maybe when she comes around you can always pull for her. Or if you like don't have the, like if you want adventuring because you need that extra sustain, or Luocha, even if you prefer Luocha, having a sustain is more important in my opinion. But we're just talking about DPS, so I think there is a lot to consider, but I just kind of wanted to give my thoughts. So let me just summarize my thoughts before we wrap things up. Should you pull for Acheron? Biased answer, yes. Logical answer, it depends based on where your account is, especially if you're free to play, and what type of characters you have built already. So there's more factors that go into her because she's a selfish DPS, as I like to call it, where she's gonna do high damage as long as you fulfill her requirements. So keep that in mind when you think about pulling for her. If you do want to pull for her, or if you did pull for her, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know if you're pulling for Luocha, Aventurine, anyone else. If you plan on pulling for Jing Liu, especially because she's coming up in the second half of this patch. So let me know what you plan on pulling for. If you have any questions, leave them down below, or if you want, you can join the Discord. Also in the description, my Twitch. I'll be streaming sort of regularly more often now. And with that, bless those pulls and have a good one. Peace.